July 1st, 2012 through June 30th, 2014.
All right. Thank you. And I want to thank the mayor first for the reappointments. I think I have probably confirmed all of these individuals in the past wearing a previous hat as committee chair, and can definitely speak to the depth and the breadth of the board members. Charlie Wu has worn the title of president of the WIB for, I believe, 4 administrations, or three administrations, maybe a fourth, depending on how he plays his cards. But I'm sure any new mayor would love to have Charlie Wu stay on, even though he keeps trying to pull out. We keep pulling him back in. And why don't you walk me through, I know we have Mr. Hassan here, so I'll speak to him in a second, but why don't you walk me through the 4 new appointees, and I'm sure you had some input with the mayor, and give me your thoughts of what these 4 individuals will add that the board currently does not have.
Yes, Mr. Chair, as you know, we focus in terms of the appointments on folks who have sector expertise.
Just for the record, for all
Greg
the people.
Irish,
Thank you. Thanks.
Director of the Workforce Investment Board. We've always focused on sector initiatives. Part of that focus, of course, you've convinced us to do that. So in terms of the 51-member board, as you know, according to federal legislation, the majority of members must be from the private sector. Then there are a number of other representatives on the board that are stipulated within federal legislation. And of course, the city determines its own priorities in terms of the additional board members. So we include representatives from LAUSD and the community college, et cetera. What you have are 4 appointees, new appointees. All of the others, you're right, you have appointed them previously. Their terms had expired, so we're renewing their terms. There are only 4 members that are up for appointment that are new members. 3 of them have not been able to come today. They were on vacation. We do have Anthony Hassan. We have focused on sector initiatives and folks who have connections to the various sectors that have the potential to create jobs within the Southland. And I can go through the list of them. They include hospitality, tourism, construction, security, et cetera. We focused on those sector initiatives, garnering the expertise of folks who can contribute to what we need to do to create jobs in LA, as well as place people in living wage jobs in LA. And what you have before you today are 4 new appointees who are related to those sectors. There's also a requirement that the WIB have 15% of its members be from organized labor, so you've got a number of new members who are being recommended that way. What we'll do is we'll ask the other 3 to come before your committee at some later time, or before the council if that's your pleasure. We have Anthony Hassan, who is an expert in the needs of veterans, and that's the expertise that we need on the WIB. As you know, there's been a focus. You know, it's been your focus in terms of how to get veterans employed, particularly when we have one of the highest unemployment rates for veterans, for those returning from Gulf War II veterans as well as Gulf War I veterans returning from service to their country, and it's one of the highest unemployment rates and within the nation as well as within California, and Anthony can speak to that, Mr. Chair.
Great. I think I will ask that those folks come back to committee, just because it's the one chance to do that week. I'm going to be out actually on my military service for the next 2 weeks, so I wouldn't get the chance, I think, if it came to council. Is this scheduled for council yet? We have it? Okay.
Good.
Either that or we'll schedule for council and we'll interview them there.
Got it.
But Mr. Ott and Mr. Scholes, I guess, bring some transportation background.
Yes.
And looking at some of the new work that we're doing in terms of America Fast Forward and the construction jobs and other work that we'll be doing. I assume that was some of the logic that the mayor had there, and very wise appointments. And then the Community Clinic Association, looking at some medical and
that's been your focus, healthcare, which is the #1 industry because of the aging baby boomers. So we've got 2 transportation-related folks, a healthcare-related person, and of course Anthony representing USC School of Social Work, and his expertise is veterans.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Hassan, for your willingness to serve, and thank you for your great work in making sure that we take care of our veterans as they come back. And I believe that we have lost more soldiers and sailors, Marines and airmen out of Los Angeles than any other city in these wars, and I believe that we've had the most people serve in uniform as well during this war period from Los Angeles. As we know, some of the various problems, and something that I've been keenly focused on in my office and my work recently is that reintegration. We were just sharing, as I told you, a statistic that at Los Angeles City College we've learned that half of the veterans that are there that are attending school are homeless. And so as we look at the combination of housing, reintegration, and certainly jobs, by definition, they all bring skills home, and matching that with private sector and civilian jobs is critically important. But tell us a little bit about yourself and your willingness to serve. And we're joined by Mr. Parks as well, so we do have a quorum. Let us know what sort of ideas you might have for making sure that our veterans do have opportunities to get a job and get back on their feet here.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. My name's Anthony Hassan. I'm a retired Air Force officer, mental health officer for 25 years. Retired 3 years ago to join the team at University of Southern California. There I run a research center devoted just to military and veterans and their families. We focus on innovative ways to train behavioral health professionals as well as doing community engaged research, trying to identify best practices and understanding the needs in our local area. In addition to that, I'm the chair of the Military Social Work Program, which is the only program in the United States of its kind, and really trying to build a workforce, trying to build capacity in the workforce to meet the mental health needs of returning men and women. Unemployment is a big issue because it affects mental health. We understand that the longer a person's unemployed, the more likely they're going to have mental health problems and family challenges. So what I'm hoping to do is bring to the table, bring to the city a collaborative approach, bring in the resources that I have at USC, the expertise we have at USC, and our understanding of the problem to help the city address the needs of returning veterans and their families, particularly around unemployment. We do a lot of studies, we do a lot of community engaged research, and we want to be able to bring resources like our interns into your work source centers and do creative things and do more proactive outreach rather than sitting and waiting. So I have a number of ideas I've been sharing with a few members, and I'd love to continue to work. We have relationships on the Hill in D.C. We have great relationships with the Pentagon. I was on the Clinton Global Initiative for Veterans. I served on the Interagency Council for Governor Brown. I worked a lot with the California Department of Veteran Affairs, but I didn't really have strong relationships right here in our backyard. So I really want to build those relationships and create collaborations with local groups, foundations, employers, and the like to do better by veterans.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for your great work, both at the national and state level, and now here at the local level as well. You clearly traveled as any good Air Force officer has, from north to south, east to west, from Florida to Alaska. What was your rank when you left Air Force?
I was a major. I served 11 years in the Army, enlisted, separated, received my education, went back in the Air Force, spent 14 years as a clinician, and went to OIF in 2004 as a combat stress officer.
That's great. And Mr. Rosendahl served here in the Vietnam era as a social worker in the United States, but during the war for returning soldiers from Vietnam. So a good person to connect with as well.
He and I have connected, yes.
Have you talked to him about that?
Oh, yes.
Good. And do you know Maribel Ramos by any chance, student?
No, I
don't.
don't.
She's my assistant administrative officer in my unit, but she's getting her master's right now in social work, focusing on Veterans Affairs. So.
At USC?
Yeah, at USC. So look out for
I will definitely.
YN1 Ramos. All right.
All right.
With that, Mr. Parks.
I just want to say thank you. The issues that you mentioned earlier, that's probably the second most question we get asked in the 8th District is about references for veterans. First, number one question is for Greg is jobs.
Yes.
The second question is what do we have for veterans and how could we assist them with the not only the medical issues but to get reintroduced back into society and provide them those opportunities. So that's something that certainly in and around the university, particularly 8th and 9th District, that is a major issue for us.
So, Mr. Parks, what I suggested, there's 4 new appointees, and then and then the rest are reappointments.
Yes,
one of the 4. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, there was a name that was inadvertently left off, and that was Norm Ross, who was a reappointment in the mayor's original transmittal, and then I think he transmitted another letter to you as of yesterday. It was Norm Ross from Polaris Enterprises, an engineering construction
I see
firm.
his bio here.
Yeah. He's being reappointed, and Darrell Sawyer, who was on the mayor's original list, has been transferred east, so he's coming off the list because he won't be able to continue to serve.
Okay, let's amend that then to include Mr. Ross, and I'll move to approve the reappointments and Mr. Hassan, and I'm going to hold the other 3 just because we've never met them before. future meeting or before it comes to council?
That'll be fine.
Be able to do that at council?
Yeah, we could do it.
Is there a time limit?
Whatever your pleasure is, no, there is no
Okay.
time limit.
So we'll work to either have them come to council and do it or at our next meeting. Okay?
Thank
So
you,
we'll
Mr.
go ahead and approve then all of the appointments except for Mr. Scholes and Ms. McCarthy. Okay?
Thank you, Mr.
Great, thank you very much.
Looking
Appreciate it.
forward to serving.
Thank you. You already have, but look forward to this new incarnation as well. All right, we'll go general public comment. Is there any general public comment? Okay, now that we have a quorum, we'll exhaust and close our general public comment. If we can go to item number 2.
Item number 2 is a Community Development Department report relative to the 2010-2011 Workforce Investment Act WorkSource and OneSource Operator Annual Performance Evaluation results.
Thank you. Robert Sines, Assistant General Manager, CDD. As you know, we're one of the few departments around the city that actually scores and ranks our agencies based on a scorecard. The scorecard, we have a nickname SOFA.
I know, we got to get a different acronym.
I know.
It sounds like we're relaxing.
It stands for Customer Satisfaction.
Has your SOFA score.
Outcomes and Flow and Administrative Capabilities.
I'll work with you on that.
Yeah, I'll work with us on that one.
So folks have been trying for many years. And one of the major benefits of having the scorecard has really been about transparency. I think one of the criticisms of many programs has always been, what are the actual outcomes of the investment coming back in? The second has been really about competition within the agencies. That if you talk to our agencies, they strive very, very hard to retain a 4-star and to be able to make a 4-star. So we've been able to increase our outcomes over the years consistently by actually utilizing the SOFA as our actual benchmark for the agencies. And every year we actually raise the bar a little. This year we're raising the bar a lot, especially on our youth piece, which we have just reformatted and repurposed on the youth system. So this report is actually a bit dated because it's 10/11, and we are proud to be actually say that we had 7 of our adult WorkSource centers actually receive 4 stars, and 9 of our youth centers to get the 4 stars, which means that they're not just meeting contract obligations, but that they're far exceeding the contract obligations.
What do you do? That's great, and we always love seeing the 4-star and even 3-star operators. What do we do with the 1- and 2-star operators? Is it just, here's the information, do better, or do we kind of have consequences, warnings, training? What do we do?
So on the administrative side, what we've actually changed, the minimum federal requirements for monitoring is 1 time a year. Within the city, we actually go 6 times a year into the agencies, and then another 6 times through the year that we actually provide technical assistance. By actually having this, we're able to direct more technical assistance to the agencies that are 1- or 2-star performers, and actually meet whatever they're failing and try to assist them to become a 4-star. What you've seen over the years is a gradual increase in the number of folks that are reaching that 4-star status. So that really allows us to pinpoint our
But there's no
resources.
consequence per se.
No, there is a consequence if they get no stars. And if you get no stars over 2 years, you're at risk of having your contract removed. It also does play into the future RFPs, and we had a case on the last youth RFP of an agency that didn't receive stars and actually impacted their ability to compete.
Mr. Chair, Greg Irish, the WIB. It's sort of like the Olympics. They all want the gold medal. Actually, again, the stars, if you actually perform and meet contract compliance, and the goals are fairly high, you get 1 star. And the rest of the stars are based on exceeding performance. And as you know, we measure performance based on placements, how many people you place in a job, how long they stay on the job, and what wage they make. That's for the adult side. The youth side, it's literacy and numeracy skills. So actually receiving 1 star, you're considered a stellar performer. The problem is, of course, that everybody wants the gold medal. So we actually acknowledge the performance of all of them, but the 4 stars basically get most of the attention.
Mr. Parks?
You know, Greg, I appreciate that definition. The concern I have is that if there are no consequences if you get 1 star, then how much do we put on emphasis for 2, 3, and 4? Is that just like nice to have, or is that
Well,
really providing better service?
it does represent that you're probably better in terms of a number of things, service delivery, and probably better in terms of your your organization itself. So we do expect that you strive for 4 stars. And again, as Robert said, we basically work with you to elevate your performance. Again, it is taken into account when we talk about discretionary grants. And also, we give a cash bonus to those who receive 4 stars. So it's not that you just can receive 1 star without continuous improvement. We will go and work with you to improve or elevate your score. I don't like to refer to it as consequences, but the higher the star rating, the greater potential to get discretionary grants and the greater potential to get the support of the WIB in terms of going after discretionary grants that are even outside the aegis of the city in terms of the federal government and the state government.
And we also publicize this, and so being a 1-star performer is like being a C restaurant. Customer flow and folks wanting to go to that actually has
Are those
severe
most of the
consequences.
places we don't eat?
What's that?
Is that most of the places we don't eat?
Yeah, exactly.
Although in fairness, I always find the Bs to be a little tastier than the As, because you want to leave a little bit onto the grill there. Yeah.
So there are expectations that for continuous improvement, and we work with them as well.
Okay. The other thing I was wondering, does it concern you in looking at this chart, the first one, that in not just individual, but in a geographic area, that none of these operations reach above, most of them are 2 or 1, and only 1 is a 3, in what we consider the high incident of service need and unemployment and poverty, that they collectively are not at the highest level. And if they're getting access to more grants and a bonus, seems that it pushes them further behind because their need is greater. And yet the area or the region seems to be well behind other regions.
We try to balance that out. For instance, at your insistence, we're going to have $600,000 dedicated to South LA this year because we do believe that that's a concern. They have the toughest people to deal with. Yeah. And we certainly don't want the community to be penalized as a result of a work-source center or a one-source center not achieving 4-star status. What we do take into account is, in terms of the performance itself, what communities you're serving. So in terms of their goals and objectives to achieve that 4-star, we look at the communities they're serving and how difficult it is to place people in jobs. So we have separate initiatives that the WIB has undertaken, again with your assistance and the mayor's assistance, that deal with those communities where we do have some 4-star performers who even have some involvement in those communities under separate competitive processes, so we don't penalize the community itself. And we'll do that, say, this year with a $600,000 investment in South LA.
Also, would the stars make a difference when you reconsider them for when their contract expires as to competition?
Only if they don't get 1 star. Remember, you have to get 1 star for contract compliance. Okay. And again, we're talking about, you'll have a second shot at this because we're talking about July 1st through June 30th of July 1st of 2010 through June 30th of 2011. So you haven't seen this past fiscal year's performance yet. We'll be bringing that to you in terms of July 1st of 11 to June 30th of 12. And you may see some better performance, some elevated performance from some of those work source centers and youth centers in South LA. We expect that you will.
Okay. I may not have the right term, but what is Dr. Cox? Is that a work source center? Or
That's a family source center.
Family source.
Okay, thank you.
And they run on a similar SOFA that we have for them as well.
So they get graded similarly?
Right, with a different set of measures for that grant.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and approve?
Yes.
Okay, move approval of item number 2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 3.
Item number 3 is a CAO and CDD reports relative to the acceptance of the $12 million Workforce Innovation Fund grant for the Los Angeles Reconnection Career Academy.
So there's some good news.
So very, very good news. And I'd like just to kick it off, and then I know we have a couple folks that came of our partners that would like to say a few words as well.
I'm sorry, we don't have time for that today.
Yeah, especially the guy in the second row, you got to watch out for him. As you know, over the last 3 years, and actually even a little longer in terms of the history, the department has had a real emphasis on returning kids to school, focusing on this out-of-school population. We did one of the first studies about 6 years ago that identified nearly 100,000 young people, 16 to 24, that are out of school and out of work. And when we talk about the social problems in the city and the correlation between them being out of school and then them being in the criminal justice system, being on the social service system, impact on the housing, and you go through the whole list.
So the 90,000, nobody was in the criminal justice system either, right? No, of those 90,000, correct?
No, and none of them were incarcerated, so
Right.
that number
It was
is
the
much
floating
larger.
population,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly, in terms of the flow. So it was folks that were non-incarcerated. They're
Right.
in our streets.
Yep.
So we know these communities. They're part of our families. We know that folks leave school for many different reasons. But one of the real impacts of them not attaining at least a high school diploma is that there's an impact to them personally in terms of their future income. They make about $650,000 over their lifetime compared to someone with a high school diploma, which will make about $1.1 million. Someone with a college degree makes about $2 million. So from their personal economic perspective, it's a huge hit. But the second area of focus that we really targeted has been the impact to the city and to the tax burden that folks that don't have a high school education has to the city. When we were actually look at the tax transfers, someone without a high school diploma costs the city about $5,000. Someone that has a high school diploma actually contributes about $100,000 over their lifetime to the tax base. And someone with a college degree, it's much, much higher than that. So in terms of the economic consequences for economic development and the quality of life, we know that folks not graduating from high school impacts not just them personally, but the community at large. Over the last 3 years in particular, we've actually have worked very, very closely with Steve Zimmer at the school board, Deborah Dorado at the school district to actually have an integrated partnership to help return kids to school and then to keep them in school once we get them back to return. We've actually done a number of programming that actually we could talk about the school district and the city working together to build a system of dropout recovery. And when we talk about certain economic or certain geographical communities, it is highly impactful in South Los Angeles, in pockets of the Valley, in East Hollywood, and other areas where there's a high concentration of young people not in school. Through our partnership, we've actually have applied for this grant. We've selected.
How do we find out about it?
It was a department. This grant, it was a Department of Labor Workforce Innovation Fund. It was highly, highly competitive. They had over 320, 330 applications from around the country. We only gave out 15, and we were one of those 15. The application itself had 3 different categories. The category that we applied for had the largest amount, which was $12 million, up to $12 million. And the real purpose of the actual grant was to do innovative programs that could be nationally evaluated and replicated. And our basic thesis is that by combining the workforce investment work with the school district dropout recovery and prevention work and have an integrated system of returning kids to school with a sector focus, and using community partners, we will increase the likelihood of kids returning to school, entering into the workforce, and completing.
I think this may be just an aftershock from yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I just thought it was my leg.
Yeah. I mean, you've said some profound things. But
Yeah, exactly,
nothing that's ever moved the earth before.
So with all of that, we made an application for the $12 million, the highest category within the Workforce Innovation Fund. We were just recently awarded the grant about 30 days ago, and we're now in front of you to accept the award and to give the contract authority. And our good CAO has completed its report as well.
So We have, would you like to add anything from CEOs?
Just that we recommend approval.
If you can just bring the microphone a little closer and identify yourself for the record, please. Thank you.
Beryl Taylor from the CEO's office. We recommend approval of the CDD to accept the grant and to add 2 new positions to implement the grant and execute contract with 6 service providers as well.
Okay. And I know we've got at least 2 of them represented here today. Couple things. We expect the outcome of this to be, we're recruiting 2,400 young people, and we're going to give service just to 1,200. That's the metrics by which you're judged, not necessarily placing them in a job, but 1,200 people who will complete the program.
Right. And part of placing, it's also a part of the actual outcome is placing them on the job. So it's returning them to school.
So we do expect 1,200 jobs to come out of it, more or less? Or?
Well, we have about 15%. We're expecting about 15% drop off. So about 85% of the 1,200.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, Greg Irish, Workforce Investment Board. Again, the Workforce Investment Act requirements for youth in terms of the expectations of placement are an increase in literacy and numeracy skills, continuing education. So some of these young folks may be returned to school and may go on to college or a job or enrollment in the military. So we expect that we'll get a number of them jobs, but we also expect that a number of them will pursue higher education. That's really what our expectations are about it. And Robert's being very modest. I mean, it's $12 million. We had the highest allocation. No one else came next to that in terms of getting an allocation. The Secretary awarded us in this round. This is the first round. We're the only jurisdiction in the country that got $12 million. So we competed well. Again, we used the 1 out of 5 report as justification. We did some work. 70%, we're focusing even on our regular delivery system, 70% of all youth will be out-of-school youth. So we've elevated the number of out-of-school youth. You could have in-school youth that you serve under our regular youth system. In our regular youth system, 70% of youth that are going to be served are out-of-school youth. This complements that. It will have sort of a scientific approach with a control group and an experimental group to see what the outcomes are. It'll be separately evaluated so you can look at that evaluation when it's finished to determine how effective it was, and we'll have to report that and provide that evaluation to the feds as well as to whether we achieve the outcomes and whether it was a cost-effective way of doing something. Mm-hmm. We're pleased with this because it actually fits the model of our design for our new system that started July 1st, which focuses on out-of-school youth. The same kind of collaboration will exist with the school districts and partners, so we've leveraged funds, just not using the funds that the city has. We've leveraged funding from other sources.
Okay. Would any of the partners like to talk?
Yes.
All joking aside. Mr. Slingerland? You're from the Young Progressive Institute?
Yeah, exactly. YPI. Hi, Dixon Slingerland, Executive Director of the Youth Policy Institute. We were very excited to partner on this with CDD. The Community Development Department and the WIB have been national leaders in transforming how we look at the youth workforce system and how we target students who are out of school, dropped out of the system, are disconnected. So, number one, I want to applaud the city, applaud the council, applaud this committee for transforming the youth workforce system in LA, which started July 1, to a system of youth workforce centers with a real focus on out-of-school youth. And number two, it's just wonderful timing that this great investment in resources from the federal government is coming in to support and really blow up this transformation. I had the opportunity last week to sit down with Secretary of Labor Hilda Solis, and she is just thrilled that LA is taking the leadership here and really is a national model for how best to use youth workforce dollars. So this has major implications nationwide, and we're just thrilled to be a part of it.
Thank you for your good work, and thanks for your partnership in getting this. Will you be working geographically, or is, when we look at these different partners, are you each taking different schools, or are you all schools? How's that?
We're doing it geographically. So
different partners
right.
will be different schools?
Right.
Okay. Who's going to be at Belmont?
So Belmont would be White.
Okay. Gotcha. And I know we have LACC here. Where are they going to be?
They're going to be serving South Los Angeles predominantly, along with the CRCD.
Okay. All right. Would our rep from LACC like to say anything, or you don't have to, but okay. We love you guys, and you do great, great work as well. Okay, Mr. Parks, questions?
You know, I just, let me see. Oh, I just want to know, does the reduction in dollars from LA Unified dealing with the adult schools, does that hamper the process of identifying folks that need assistance?
No. There's a particular unit within LA Unified that's really a jewel of a program, and it's their dropout recovery and prevention program. They're the ones that do the pupil service and attendance. They actually have a list of about 18,000 young people that have either left the school just recently or have not returned to school, say an 8th grader that didn't show up for the 9th grade. That 18,000 list is a live list, and that's the list that we're going to be working together between their PSA officers and our PSA staff and our community-based staff. Will be working that list very specifically. So we're getting much, much smarter of how we're actually doing our work in terms of recruiting the out-of-school youth. Where it does come into impact is the options of where you actually place, and adult schools have always been one of our major placements for our out-of-school youth. So they've reduced their budgets probably about 40% and have shuttered a few of their campuses. But they do have 10 campuses that they're concentrated and working on that we will be working with as well.
Are there alternatives? Is the community colleges picking up any of the slack?
Not so much as picking up the slack. Many of the colleges are near capacity or at capacity as well. But they're also a partner in this grant, and we have been working with them very specifically to enroll young people in appropriate programs, if it's in remediation or in certificated programs, and not necessarily just an AA degree track.
Thank you.
And we do have an attachment of the logic model that we're submitting to committee as well.
Of the what? The logic?
The logic model.
Gotcha.
It was part of the grant.
Is that was included today?
Yes, sir.
Yes, the clerk. Clerk has a copy.
Oh, here it is. I got you. Logic model matrix. And so, one last question. So the average youth helped by this will be during a single year, or it will be over a series of years?
Ideally, in the first 12 months that we actually have their school matriculation, but not all kids will actually complete the matriculation side of it in the 12 months. What we find is that a number of the young people that are coming in that are 17, 18 only have 5, 10, 15 credits,
right,
and they're only freshmen. So it's going to take them much longer to actually complete the high school diploma. The second part that we're looking at is actually on the job placement. In this grant, we actually put subsidized employment. So that is going to actually buy them into the workforce.
So some of these dollars can be used for that?
Yes, there's a good chunk of these dollars are for subsidized.
And there's no requirement that it be spent out in a year? What's the time frame from DOL?
24 months.
24 months.
Yeah. And the whole overall grant is 40 months. We're doing our contracts for 36 months. We're doing this first couple of months in terms of the planning and getting all the approvals.
Okay, great. All right, any further questions?
So I understand it. Specifically, what does this model represent?
It was part of the grant requirement that we actually submit what's called the logic model that tries to capture our very complex and diverse system all on one page. And so, as you can see, it basically flows in terms of what problem we're trying to attack, what resources that we're putting into, who are our partners, and then the type of activities that are taking place. You do need a magnifying glass to actually read it through, but it really does.
Intentional.
It really does give a snapshot of all that we're trying to do with this program.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move approval. Congratulations, everybody. I
Thank
just
you.
Thank you.
Googled the acceptance rate for Harvard, and it's easier to get into Harvard than to have gotten one of these grants, so congratulations. Job well done. Thank you. All right, this meeting...
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
just for the record, you're approving the CAO report.
the CAO report, correct. Always, you know. Don't get me wrong, I love CDD, but CAO is the final seal of approval. So we'll move the CAO report. With that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.